Hi, my name's Paul Armstrong, and I'm here to give this lightning talk on DevOps. To make it less academic and more useful, we want to give this talk on DevOps in the context of mission-critical solutions for the security sector environment where we have clients. So before we talk specifically about DevOps, let's see the context that we wanted to deploy DevOps into. So what we see is that organizations pay a lot of attention towards technology investments, more so than they ever have. They're looking for effective governance, the proper leadership and an empowering leadership to make sure that those people are responsible for what they deliver, and they're looking for a return on investment. In addition, we need to make sure that what we invest in provides proper security of supply. That is, that it's reliable and it's secure and it's always running for your clients. And importantly, there's a constant need for change. That software, those applications need to be able to adapt to that constant need for change. So what we see is that reliable, secure, and adaptable software systems is the mission that our clients need to achieve. And when they go about doing that, they organize their teams according to that mission and with the different concerns that those individual teams have. In particular, we see two different teams emerging from this need. IT operations in charge of infrastructure management, server management, networks, resources, resiliency, recovery, backup, security, and support. These are the people and the team that keeps the lights on. Stable and reliable and secure is what they need to deliver. Another team we see is the software development team, architecture, software, databases, the user interface, integration, automation, security, and support of the application. This team is different, being fast, needing to respond to threats and opportunities. So typically, most organizations separate IT operations from their software development arm, doing this to achieve the right level of governance, accountability, and to have each group focus on the value that they offer. The problem is development operations are not on the same mission when they're deployed like this. These two different ways of operating and two different missions are completely at odds with each other. And this causes a problem that's described by the theory of constraints. And that theory tells us that on average, most organizations are operating 65% below productivity of where they should be because of the way they've organized their teams. And no wonder that we're still seeing 70 or 68% of IT projects or organizations with IT projects that fail. So what does this mean to your organization? Well, in the worst case scenario, you make a headline. And we all know these, and we've seen these, and we've certainly worked with organizations that have had an unfortunate situation where they make the news with their IT investments going wrong. What does this mean to you personally? Well, without knowing what your role is, it's difficult to know. But I can tell you that CIAs have some of the shortest tenures in the C-suite. They're 20% more likely to finish their job early, and they certainly are the people that carry the can when those major IT investments go the wrong way. So it's not what we're doing, however, it's how we're doing it. We still need to deploy technology. That's not the problem. It's how we're going about it is the problem. So there is a new way, and I'm going to talk to you about key DevOps fundamentals. I've only got 5 minutes. I can't cover everything, but we've chosen a few key things as takeaways that we believe that if you were to think about and start to activate or act on, you could start making a difference inside of your organization. So two things that you need to do: agile software development and software that automates other software. So let's start with agile and DevOps. Agile's methods work. They're twice as likely to be successful as what has come before them with non-agile projects. And indeed, that statistic has actually gone down because now fewer people are doing much for fewer agile, non-agile projects. So now we're seeing a lot more agile that's going on in the industry. And as a result, we're seeing fewer projects actually fail. But still right now, with those projects that don't use agile, you're twice as likely to fail than not. So let's talk a little bit more about agile and DevOps and what you need to do. Two key things: outcomes-focused teams and self-organizing teams. Outcomes focused, we rely on the commander's intent definition. So commander's intent means explaining why something must be done when assigning a task to someone. The more your people understand the purpose behind what must be done, the better they will do it. By being clear about the purpose behind a plan, others can act towards that goal without the need of constant communication. So to give you an analogy, when you're in the fog of war, you don't have the opportunity to stand still and ask for directions. And that's what you need to provide for a successful agile team to be successful. Arm them with the outcome that you're trying to achieve and get them to focus on that. So when they're making decisions, they make the right decisions towards that outcome. Another key important principle that works with being outcome focused is self-organized team. The best architectures, requirements, designs emerge from self-organizing team. Let the people closest to the work make the decision on how best to get the work done. And this picture exemplifies all of that. We often let people closest to the work make the most important decisions. And when you realize that that's the normal way to operate, and when you make your team focused and aware of the outcome, then you can trust them to make the best decisions to get the job done. Because you know what? They are the people in the position to make the best decisions based on the work in front of them. What else do you need to do? So this is about software that automates software. Indeed, there are two different ways that we're going to cover this: software-defined everything and convention over configuration. Indeed, you actually don't have to do the software that that automates software if you can find people that have that 10 times X factor. Those people that no matter what you give them, always achieve, always give you results. But those people are hard to find, hard to hire, hard to keep happy, and hard to retain. They are just hard. And we have a term for those, we call them unicorns. There's nothing wrong with these people, but it is not a strategy to rely on finding these people. And indeed, major organizations, major enterprises are now considering that software that automates software is either mission critical or very important to their IT strategy. And it is to avoid needing those unicorns inside of your organization that you used to otherwise rely on. So let's talk about two patterns inside of the software automation that you need to do. Software-defined everything. So infrastructure, networks, environments, and processes can now all be automated through software, all defined through software and deployed through software. No longer do you need to actually feel the infrastructure, plug the networks in, deliver it personally to a different environment, and always have humans at every step of that process. Software can define all of these things for you. And we can see that research finds that you can get a 20% reduction for software-defined data centers. So we're talking about infrastructure, optimizing your infrastructure, getting a standard platform, orchestrating the labor that sat over that infrastructure, and automating the operations, including the support of that infrastructure. So the first thing to understand is it's possible to define your entire infrastructure through software. And the next thing to understand is that as you go down that path, there are savings to be had in that way. So when we do this, what we see is that you end up with other benefits. You can version control everything. You can audit everything that goes on in your environments. You can automate the testing of everything. So no longer do you have to make a deployment on a checklist that you expect someone to change an environment. You actually can define the software that changes that environment outside of human control and automate the testing of what that means. And when you do these things, you avoid that constant need of your new people, and indeed even your existing people, to learn how things are done around here. Create IP inside of your organization and avoid the unnecessary subject matter experts that need to have that know-how that you previously had. And when you do these things, you get improved security, and research shows this, fewer errors, faster changes, greater efficiency, and cost savings across your environment. Final thing that we'll talk about is convention over configuration. So what is this? What this means is a developer only needs to specify unconventional aspects of the application. It is intended to decrease the number of decisions that a developer is required to make without necessarily losing flexibility. So let's look at an example, just a trivial example of how you might send an email to someone if you were organising a journey. Can you please organise a Wellington day trip for me next Monday as per what I normally need? This is a convention type email. This doesn't specify the detail of how that trip works because you know what? The trip always works in the same way. Alternatively, on the right-hand side, you can see what you would have to do through configuration. You'd have to organise the taxi, you'd have to organise the flight, you'd have to organise the other taxi at the other end. You might always have a lunch date. Then you'll have to organise the taxi back and a flight and a final taxi back. Convention on the left-hand side is what we can normally do and we can get away with. Configuration on the right-hand side, yes, you can go down to that level of detail, but it's brittle and it's open to errors and also it's weak. Why do we talk about convention over configuration? Actually, in a software-defined everything, there is the threat of creating configuration sprawl, and convention over configuration is the antidote to that. So finally, if you recall, I mentioned, or I had this slide, right? These two areas, development and IT operations, are on different missions when they're set about this way. And this is described by this problem is described by the theories of constraints. So why is the theory of constraint important? Well, research says that when you overcome this, you can have a benefit in your delivery time, your inventory, increased revenue, reduced cycle times, and increased profit. And it may well be that not all of those areas like increased revenue and profit are important to you, but I'm sure delivery time, work in progress, and cycle times are. And this is what we can overcome when we overcome the theory of constraints that was otherwise set up with separate IT and operations, but is resolved through DevOps. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed that and you learned something from Section 6. Please contact us for your next DevOps mission.